Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are watching from. My name is Delvin Wenani and welcome to our revision. Today we want to talk about the biology KCSE revision, the first paper that was done in 2019. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. Follow me to the end. If you have any question, remember to subscribe, follow my channel, that is Delvin Wenani, and comment, share so that we can be able to educate our society through this online venture. So let us dive into our work today. And today we want to talk about the biology paper 1. I'll be taking you through from question 1 to the last question. So ladies and gentlemen, let us meet in the room. So in the year 2019, the first question in the year 2019 was, name the characteristics of living organisms illustrated by each of the following activities described below. And these are the activities. Number 1 is the behavior of organism by dressing heavily. And organisms have a tendency of dressing very heavily, especially when the climate changes. So which kind of characteristic is exhibited by this venture? And definitely, ladies and gentlemen, it is irritability, sensitivity, or what we call response to a stimulus. Remember, cold by itself, it's a stimulus, and therefore the response by dressing becomes a response to the stimuli. The second one is bursting of the sporangium in the rhizopus. Bursting of the sporangium in the rhizopus species. That is definitely a type of an asexual reproduction, and that is under reproduction. Then beside venation, that is question number 2. Beside venation, state 2 other external characteristics of leaves that can be used to classify plants. So remember, plants are also classified, and therefore there are some features that are used to classify plants. And we are going to talk about, apart from just looking at the external features, what else can be used to classify these plants. And that is, we look at the shape of the leaf. That is it a broad or narrow? We also look at the leaf margins, that is arrayed, serrated, smooth, lobed, etc. And then the leaf type, is it simple or compound? Talking about compound leaves or simple leaf. We also have the leaf sheath, that is a petiole. Look at the petiole. Does it have the petiole or doesn't have? Just like when you talk about a monocot plant leaf and a dicot plant leaf, we look at the petiole part of it. Does it have or doesn't have it? Then you also look at the leaf apex, that is the tip of the leaf. You look at that. Is it pointed or is it absent? We also look at the arrangement. Sometimes we call it the phyllotaxis or phyllotaxy. That is the arrangement of the leaves. We'll also tell you over the same. Then you have the leaf color, or what we call variegation of the leaf, the color of it and the variegation. All those ones are just some of the features. They are so looking at all these features, you can be able to classify your leaf. Then 2b, that is, explain why the bat is classified as a mammal, yet it flies. A bat, we all know a bat. Explain why the bat is classified as a mammal, yet it flies. So the answer is it has a mammary glands, and therefore it belongs to class Mammalia. So that's why we classify it as a mammal. It has mammary gland. Its body is covered with fur. Remember, bodies are covered by feathers. That's why they belong to class Aves. But with the bat, the body is covered with fur or hair. And then number 3, it also gives birth, so does not lay eggs. So it's a viviparous animal. So all the animals that lay eggs, we call them the viviparous. So it's a viviparous animal, and therefore it belongs to a class Mammalian. It has an external ear. Remember, class Aves do not have an external ear. So it has a pinna outside, and therefore it's under class Mammalia. It has sweat glands, so it sweats, therefore it belongs to class Mammalia. These are characteristics of class Mammalia organisms, and therefore bat, being a mammal, will definitely fit into these characteristics, and therefore it is classified as a mammal. Then the diagram below illustrates a specialized cell obtained from a certain tissue. This is the cell. So let us look at the cell. And actually, when you look at this cell, it reminds you of response in Form 4. So let us look at some of the questions under this diagram. The first question says, name the cell. Actually, what is the cell? When you go back and look at this cell, what is it? What is this cell? Actually, this one is a nerve cell. Actually, it's a nerve cell, motor neuron to be specific, but it's a nerve cell. So if you say a nerve cell, because the question was to name the cell, it was not to name the type of the nerve cell. It was to name the cell. So if you say the nerve cell, it's okay. But if you say a motor neuron, it's also okay. So you are being too specific, which is fine. Say two ways in which the cell is structurally adapted to its function. How does it adapt to its function? Number one, it has a longer axon to deliver or to transmit action potential a long way. It also has numerous dendrites for receiving and delivering impulses, also and transmitting of impulses. It also has a myelin sheath for faster transmission of impulses. We talk about myelin sheath as for faster transmission of the impulses. It has a Schwann cell, and we know Schwann cell. The function of the Schwann cell is actually to produce the myelin sheath. So it produces the myelin sheath. It has the rods of Ranvier, and this one is to enhance the speed and fasten the transmission of impulses. That is the function of the nodes of Ranvier, speeding up and also transmission of the impulse. It has a cell body, and we can see the cell body, and the cell body actually controls the transmission of impulses. It controls the transmission of the impulses. Question number 4. In investigating a certain physiological process, students set up the apparatus shown below and made the observation after 30 minutes as illustrated. Now you can see from the illustration, in the beginning, solution E and solution F were at equal levels and separated by substance G. Then at the end of the experiment, we discover that the level of solution F has reduced, has gone down. The solution E has risen. And if you look keenly, you discover that the content of solution E is actually part of the content of solution F. So let us go to the question part. So name the physiological process being investigated. Definitely the particles are moving, and there are not any other particles, but they are water particles, and therefore this is osmosis. So this is osmosis as a physiological process. Then account for the observation made at the end of the experiment. What is seen at the end of the experiment? We are seeing that the content in the F is much more than the content in the E. And therefore, this is because solution E was hypertonic, had more solute molecules compared to solution F. And therefore, the solution F was hypotonic to solution E. And therefore, by osmosis, water molecules was able to move from the semi-permeable membrane, that is G, from solution F to E. So G is actually our permeable membrane, our semi-permeable membrane. Hence the decrease in volume of solution F, which increased volume of solution E. State the likely identity of G, and therefore this is just a semi-permeable membrane. You can say it's a whisking tubing. You can say it's a slice of a raw potato, a pawpaw, pig bladder, a cellophane paper, dialysis membrane. All of them are just examples of the identity of G. As long as it's able to separate, it's able to work as a semi-permeable membrane, allow some particles to pass through, but not all the particles. Then it typically qualifies to be a semi-permeable membrane. Explain why increasing the blood pH slows down the rate of selective reabsorption of materials in the kidney tubules. And this is because selective reabsorption of materials in the kidney tubules is energy dependent and therefore requires a lot of energy and synthesized through the process of cellular respiration. That is the action of the respiration or enzymes whose working, that is effectiveness of working, is affected by change in pH. And as a result, at low pH or high pH, that is when you have high pH or when you have low pH, that means we have high acidity. And when the pH is affected, the permeability of the kidney tubules shall also be affected. Okay, but we also accept any other words to that effect. But the point must be very clear. Now, so name the respiratory structure in the amoeba. The respiratory structure in the amoeba, actually the amoeba, the respiratory structure of amoeba is just the cell, the plasma membrane, or what we call the plasmalemma. Give a reason for your answer above. Amoeba is a unicellular living organism and hence has a large surface area to the volume ratio. And because diffusion will simply take place, it's adequate for its respiratory needs, and therefore it does not require an elaborate what we call respiratory system. So it's through diffusion. So substances just diffuse in and out of the amoeba. Distinguish between chemical and mechanical digestion. Chemical and mechanical digestion. So chemical digestion simply entails the action or breakdown of that is ingested food materials by the action of the digestive enzymes. From the mouth, talk about the ptyalin enzymes down as we go into the stomach. That is chemical breakdown when starch is being acted on by enzyme amylase. That's a chemical digestion. But mechanical digestion, on the other case, is now the breakdown, refers to that physical breakdown of large food materials into small forms. And this is just to offer subsequent large surface area for the action of those enzymes. We break down food so that we offer when they are broken down in smaller particles, we have large surface area for action of the what we call the digestive enzymes. State the role of each of the following in the mammalian respiratory system. The first one is the mucus. What does the mucus do in the mammalian respiratory system? And actually, mucus traps foreign particles from inhaled incoming air. It also moistens the incoming or inhaled air for efficient gaseous exchange. We have the cartilage rings of cartilage. Some people call it the rings of cartilage or cartilage rings. It's just the same. The cartilage rings keep the windpipe, or what we call the trachea, open, not to collapse, so and therefore to allow for continuous flow of air. We have an epiglottis. So epiglottis acts as a valve, as a flap between the larynx and the esophagus to permit air to enter the airway to the lungs and food particles to pass into the gut. So it acts as a flap so that food cannot accidentally find themselves into the trachea, and neither could the air now go to the stomach. So it acts as a flap so that it closes one end when one end is not required. Like when you are breathing, it closes the other side, but when you are swallowing, it opens up and closes the trachea system. So below is a photograph of Brassica oleracea, that is sukuma-wiki leaf. Let us look at the question. State two observable features that adapt the leaf to gaseous exchange. State two observable features that adapt the leaf to gaseous exchange. Now, this is the leaf. We can look at it and we want to name features that adapt the leaf to gaseous exchange. Number one, it's broad, and you can see it's broad lamina is broad, and therefore it exposes more stomata for gaseous exchange. It also provides large surface area for gaseous exchange. Then explain the relationship between photosynthesis and aerobic respiration within the leaf. Photosynthesis within the leaf occurs in the presence of light. That's right. And therefore, this yielding of simple carbohydrates, that is glucose, sugars, are produced. And this actually forms the main substrates that are used during aerobic respiration. So, and therefore, it also producing energy in the form of ATP. Now, during the process of respiration, carbon dioxide is produced in turn, which is carbon dioxide produced is in turn used as a raw material in photosynthesis. So during which process, that is, water is also broken down and it yields oxygen, which is used in cellular aerobic. That is used in the cellular through what we call the aerobic. So what we are saying is the process of photosynthesis and the process of aerobic respiration have something in common. In simple, we're saying photosynthesis will produce oxygen, and oxygen will be used in the process of respiration, that is aerobic respiration. Because aerobic respiration is a type of respiration that requires what? Requires oxygen. Therefore, they will be working together. In an investigation, students set up the apparatus below in a laboratory and made observation after 72 hours. So we have the source of light, we have a bell jar, this is a potted plant, that's a mouse, then we have sodium hydroxide solution. So let us look at what will happen after some time. Explain how inclusion of the following components will affect the mouse in the experiment. Number one, the light. How does the light affect the mouse? So light will enable the potted plant to photosynthesize, producing oxygen which is inhaled by the mouse, and thus sustaining it. The illuminated light can further affect or alter some physiological processes in the mouse as a result of the constant direct beam light. Also absorbs carbon dioxide, that is rat. It absorbs carbon dioxide, which is now exhaled by mainly exhaled by the mouse. So while at the same time, it will deny the plant the needed raw materials, carbon dioxide, to photosynthesize, hence suffocating the mouse, limiting its survival. Explain each of the following physiological observation. Number one, sportsmen release little concentrated urine at the end of strenuous exercise. Why? So during the exercise, that is, they sweat a lot, and we talk about profusely to cool the body, and this eliminates some nitrogenous waste. So a lot of water is lost through this process, and therefore the individual becomes dehydrated. And the little water that is left in the body system is further selectively reabsorbed into the kidney tubules, resulting in what we call less concentrated urine. A rabbit has a higher oxygen demand than a camel. How? When we talk about a rabbit and camel, it boils back to the issue of surface area, that is surface area to the volume ratio. And this is because a rabbit has a higher surface area to the volume ratio, hence has a bigger surface exposed for heat loss to the environment. It is also more active than the camel, hence need more oxygen to respire or to synthesize the needed energy to support its active lifestyle. So while investigating a certain metabolic process in plants, students set up the apparatus as shown below in a classroom and monitored it for 48 hours. So what we have here, we have plants, and then we have a test tube which has lime water in it. The name for lime water is actually calcium hydroxide. Now, identify The metabolic process under investigation. Identify the metabolic process under investigation. So this is respiration. Account for the observation made in the test tube at the end of the experiment. There will be formation of white PPT. So the lime water or the calcium hydroxide solution in the test will form what we call a white PPT, or it will turn milky, turbid. That is, plants will respire. That's now the explanation. Plants respire, and when they respire, they produce carbon dioxide, which forms a white precipitate with lime water. A female human being was found to have an extra sex chromosome in her cells. An extra sex chromosome in her cells, and therefore, if she's a female, then she must be XXX, 3Xs. So give the total number of chromosome in the female individual's cells. So that is definitely 47 chromosomes. The normal one is 46, so plus the extra one, that is 47. Explain the possible cause of this condition. The causes could be so many, but non-disjunction is a major one, or what we call the failure of homologous chromosome to separate, segregate. Sister chromatids fail to separate, segregate, resulting in having an extra sex chromosome, then X chromosome in a cell. Therefore, the person will be having XXX instead of XX. So we can also accept any other words to that effect, as long as it brings out the explanation about the non-disjunction and also failure of homologous chromosome to separate. We have no issue with that. State 2 physiological characteristics observed in female individual with such a condition. Number 1, they are infertile, ovary abnormalities. They are taller than the average women. Developmental delays. They have a higher voice pitch and more pronounced signs of obesity. More pronounced signs of obesity. Explain why fossil records as evidence of organic evolution are usually incomplete. We're saying the partial or entire decomposition of dead organisms, organic matter fossils, they rot. We're also having some parts of entire dead organisms are eaten by scavengers. We have soft-bodied organisms do not fossilize. And then natural disasters like earthquakes, earth movement. Some books talks about geological processes like earthquakes. So name the evidence of organic evolution exhibited by occurrence of similar amino acids molecules in a range of organisms. This one is actually comparative physiology, biochemistry, cell biology, or serology. 15. Distinguish between guttation and transpiration. So guttation is the process by which plants lose water in form of water droplets. That's excess water. It's a process by which plants lose excess water in form of water droplets, while transpiration is the process by which plants lose water in form of water vapor. Now, state the significance of transpiration to a plant. How does it help a plant? 1, it enables the plant to get rid of excess water. It also creates what we call a suction of force, which helps in the uptake of water and mineral salts from the soil. It also cools the plant. Now, state 2 benefits of mutation in living organism. Benefits of mutation in living organism. 1, it can bring about beneficial, advantageous traits. Yeah, it can be very beneficial, can bring what we call beneficial and advantageous traits. It can also increase heterozygosity, that is, and the size of the gene pool, which increases variation. Now, below are photographs of 2 dogs. You can see the 2 dogs. One is upright, the other one is sleeping like that. So, explain the possible reason for the difference in the length of the fur. The possible is actually the geographical distribution, and therefore made the animals adapt to survive in different environments cold or hot, with those having thicker fur being adapted to colder regions, that is for insulation. We can also talk about the genetic, that is being passed on from parents to the offspring. Name the type of teeth in carnivores mainly used for piercing and killing of prey. And definitely this is canine. Canine is actually used for piercing and killing of prey. So below is a diagram of the human digestive system. Label with Y on the diagram where enzyme amylase is produced. So you're supposed to label the salivary glands in the mouth and also the pancreas. You're supposed to label those two. So beside the digestive role, explain one other function of the part label H. And actually the part label H, and that's an endocrine function. It has what we call, it secretes, that is insulin and glucagon, the hormones responsible for blood sugar regulation and also for osmoregulation. State how each of the following features enhance efficient movement of fish in water. That is scale. They overlap, the scales overlap or facing backwards, which provides what we call a smooth surface for easier movement, and are also slimy, they are slippery, covered with mucus for easier smooth movement in water, and they reduce friction or what we call resistance. The body shape is actually streamlined body shape to reduce friction, and there it's pointed head for easier penetration movement in water. Make a diagram of a simple bilobed leaf with a serrated margin. Bilobed means it has two lobes. It's bilobed. Then it has a serrated margin. So that's a simple diagram of the same. Just a simple diagram. Remember, don't shade. Just draw a simple diagram showing the veins. The chart below illustrates how respiratory gases are transported in the human blood. Hemoglobin plus gas P, you get oxyhemoglobin. Hemoglobin plus gas Q, you get carboxyhemoglobin. Therefore, let us move on. Identify gas Q, the gas which combined with hemoglobin to form carboxyhemoglobin. That is carbon 2 oxide. Explain the advantage of oxyhemoglobin has over carboxyhemoglobin. And oxyhemoglobin is unstable. It freely dissociates, unlike carboxyhemoglobin, which is less, which has what we call less dissociative features. It cannot dissociate easily, and therefore carboxyhemoglobin is stable, binds itself, it holds on the hemoglobin molecules and does not dissociate, hence starving the tissues of the cells, leading to suffocation. But when you talk about oxyhemoglobin, it is unstable. It's freely dissociates, releasing oxygen to the tissue. It dissociates, leaving hemoglobin molecules free to take up more gaseous molecules. State 3 homeostatic roles of the liver. One is for thermoregulation or temperature regulation, blood sugar balance, protein and amino acid or what we call fat regulation. So Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale are transmitted by a mosquito. State with a reason whether the two organisms can interbreed. Whether the two can interbreed. Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale. They can interbreed because they belong to the same genus, though they belong to different species. Explain the evolutionary basis for the ever-changing drugs for malaria treatment. Now, malaria-causing parasites over time, they have become resistant to some malaria drugs, and due to what we call gradual changing of their genetic constitution because of mutation, which in time results in what we call evolution and eventually perpetuation of the new strains of vectors, hence necessitating the discovery of more effective drug to counter the new emerging strains. So we accept any other words to that. State 1 characteristics of muscles responsible for each of the following. One is what we call peristaltic movement, and this is spindle-shaped, lack of striations, they are not striated, uninucleated, that they have one nucleus. Then the movement of the limbs, they can be striated, they are cylindrical shaped, they are numerous, they have what we call numerous mitochondria, and therefore they are also multinucleated. And actually that one brings us to the end of that revision. So I want to take this opportunity to appreciate, kindly revise, you can go through the video once more, be able to share it, be able to reach as many people as we can. I'll be back with more videos on the year 2020. I'll also do the KCSE paper 2. Kindly let us comment. Let me hear your comment. Your comments will make this work to be better. Thank you very much, and God bless you.